Welcome back to the Freak Show. I am Jeff Borschowa, your host and resident freak. Welcome to the show. If you're new, this is a place where I will share as a nonlinear thinker um, things that I've learned about myself and ways that I have created or adopted or leveraged to get the most out of my nonlinear brain while causing the least friction in a linear world. Today's episode, I want to talk about systems. Now, for the record, there are a lot of books out there about systems. My top three would be E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I would say then David Jenin's Systemology, and of course, Gino Wickman, Traction. Rocket Fuel also, but that's a bonus book. So three favorite authors. And on a personal note, I would say my favorite probably would be then James Clear, Atomic Habits. Now, for the record, when I first read Traction, I thought to myself, wow, that's nice. I'm sure that's great for other people. I assumed that Gino Wickman was one of the linear thinkers and he was trying to put us in a box. Now, I've since learned, and I'm grateful for this, Gino is, in fact, a nonlinear thinker, and he didn't create the EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System, to constrain us, but he created it for us to help us constrain what we need to do and to make sure that we succeed. Now, the reason that's an important distinction, he did it for us, not to us, is that his goal, as I understand it, and through the books and through my learning, was to take nonlinear thinkers. We also have the label visionary in his world, and build things with an integrator who can make sure that our chaos becomes contained and it becomes a viable business. So early days, I have always known that systems are important. I've never quite figured out how to follow someone else's system. And that's where nonlinear people always fall down, is we try to follow somebody else's system built as a cookie cutter without figuring out, how does it apply to me? How do I customize it for me? And that's where Atomic Habits came in. I think that was probably the biggest leap for me in this space, was instead of trying to find someone else's systems to fit into, I'm going to build systems that work with me. And more importantly, for the visionary integrator roles, what are the systems we need in place to, first of all, protect the visionary and their time as a visionary? They need to have free time to be able to explore. And we need to protect the integrator and the team from the chaos that can happen when a visionary is in full-blown R&D mode. So if you're in a business, you're a visionary founder, and you are having less impact than you believe you should, if you're working harder than you should, it's almost always because you're constantly evolving and you're constantly in R&D mode. That was one of my struggles early on in my career as an entrepreneur. Just because I can do everything doesn't mean I should. And so what I've done now is I have a R&D lab where I get to play all I want. There's ideation, there's whiteboards, there's brainstorming. It's where I get to play. Now, nothing leaves the lab and enters production until we've validated it as a valuable thing in the business, whether it's a new product, a new service. It goes through a validation filter through a system, and only then do I hand it over to the team to implement. Now, for the record, this is where a lot of corporate friction comes from. When you have a visionary who's just coming up with brand new ideas every day, at some point, the integrators start to resist and start to resent because we keep giving them new things to do. So this is where we, as nonlinear thinkers, we excel at creating new ideas. What we need is just a system to validate them before we put them into production. And then we need systems for how we communicate with our integrators. We need to give them some certainty, whereas we thrive in uncertainty. So that's just my biggest aha. Now, the other thing, and this is for the visionaries themselves, and this is where I've had the biggest personal gains, is creating systems to help support me in what I do. So again, I'm not here to teach you how to do systems. I'm here to say that systems are powerful. And again, habits, it's just another word for systems, because what we do with habits is, and James Clear does this very well, explains it well, we can do the activities consistently that we know will yield the results we want if we turn them into habits. So the cool thing about habits is we're eliminating reliance on willpower, memory. We're just making certain things a standard part of our day, which to me is a system. It's a habit. You call it what you will. One of my favorite quotes from Atomic Habits is that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. So we can have lofty goals. We will not reach them unless we build the systems to get us there. So for me personally, I have systems in place for my R&D work so that I always have a framework. I have a container in which to create and to play and to test. And the key is that container doesn't explode into operations. So think about the areas, and this is what I've done, and I encourage all of you to do. Look at the areas in your life, in your business, where you keep encountering friction or you accidentally self-sabotage because you forget things. That is where you want to start by building systems around you. Now, one of the things I did was I looked at the 8 dimensions of wellness. I think that was created by Peggy Swarbrick. And basically what I realized was that I am one person. So there's that concept of work-life balance. For me, everything is all at once, everywhere. So basically what I needed to do was create a system where all of my stuff, my personal, my work, everything was in one place. And for me in particular, that one place is the Google workspace. I have spreadsheets, I have forms, I have documents, folders. I have an entire structure, and everything in my life goes in there. Whether it's stuff I need to action today, stuff I need to worry about later on. I have a place for everything in my Google Drive. So I'm no longer looking for notes. I'm no longer trying to track down links or whatever. There's a phrase, I don't remember where I got it from, but basically, future you will thank today you for taking the time to be organized. A lot of times it's easy to say, oh, I'll do that later. I'll document that later. Problem is, when later comes, we look at it and go, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? So I make notes to future me saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking today. Here's why I'm excited about it. Here's what I'm struggling with. Here's how I made this decision. I make notes so that future me comes back and goes, oh, that's where we were. Now, again, that might sound like chaos incarnate, but the reality is I don't carry things around. I don't worry about, will I forget this or will I remember that? If I have something that I need to look at by a certain date, I put it all in a Google document. I put it in my calendar, and when the time comes, everything is there, including links for research, etc. So I'm not saying use my system. I'm saying think about the friction in your life, the things you forget, the things you blank on, and find ways to systemize it so that you don't. I hope that was useful. I'd love to hear. For whatever reason, I'm meeting a lot of nonlinear thinkers who have built their own systems. And for the record, they say, oh, everybody should try this. I agree, everybody should have systems. I disagree that there is such a thing as one system works for everybody. But take systems others have built, look at what works for you, see how you can apply it. Thank you. And I'd love your comments. What systems are saving you? Just comment down below. Thank you.